This is Amanda from Willow and Pip. Today I'm going to show how I make my cold processed goat's milk soap. And this recipe is a spa-like fragrance blend. I call this soap the Oasis. I do use all of the same base recipe for my soap bars. If you're starting out in a business, I would highly recommend doing that. It keeps ordering and maintaining your ingredients simple and efficient. So I start out by melting my hard butters. So in the pot, I've melted down my shea butter and my coconut oil. And I just do this by a hot plate. I put the butters in the pot and just on low to medium heat and just melt it down until it's in liquid format. I then take the pot off of the heat and I add in my liquid oils. I will put the entire recipe in the description of this YouTube video so that when I'm walking you through this voice tutorial, if I'm not mentioning measurements or exact ingredients, just refer to the recipe card below and that'll help clarify. When I add the liquid oils to the hard melted oils, of course, everything is now liquid. I do hit it with a thermo gun and I make sure that the temperature is around 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And I also make sure that my lye water solution is around the same temperature. So either of those temperatures, I try to get between a range of 90 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. I find that just mixes the soap to the best thickness. It doesn't trace too quickly. I don't get any cracking. It just really creates a nice soap bar. When I do pour that lye water solution into the oils, you see I use a really fine strainer there. That's just to ensure that I strain out any lye residue. When you make your lye water, your water and lye mixture, sometimes what will happen is you get kind of just this lye film at the top, and I don't want any of that in the finished soap. I know you can just blend it through, but I find it creates just a very a more clean looking bar for your end product. It's not unsafe by any means, but I just, for visual purposes, I like to do the straining option. So once the lye water solution's added to the oil blend, you can stick blend at this point. I like just to blend to sort of the minimum trace because I am going to be adding my essential oils. For this essential oil blend, I have used predominantly lavender and a little bit of eucalyptus, a little bit of bergamot, and a little bit of frankincense. I like to combine those into a mason jar and I add to it some goat's milk powder and give that a really good shake. And then I add it to the batter itself. And here, because I don't want the soap batter to get too thick at this point, I'm just hand mixing with the spatula. I am going to be dividing this batter into a couple of different containers and I'll be doing more stick blending. So I didn't want to stick blend at this point again so that I didn't have the batter getting too thick. So in the first container, I have pre-measured out a couple of teaspoons of pink French clay, and in the blue container, I have done the same with a couple of teaspoons of indigo powder. Now, I always mix those clays and powders with the liquid oils that I have pre-measured out. So I use olive oil, castor oil, and grapeseed oil for my liquid oils. I'll measure those out, and then I'll take a couple of tablespoons of that oil blend and put it into these containers. I like to do this so that I don't have any of those clays kind of being chunky in my overall blend. I find it just mixes better. So I've pre-prepped that before I add the soap batter in here. And again, I'm just using another spatula to mix by hand, trying to scrape the bottom, incorporate it as best as I can before I hit this with a final stick blend. Again, I don't want to stick blend too soon, because as you could see, the clays, the pink clay and the indigo powder will automatically make your batter thicker. And because I want to get a nice swirl here when I pour the soap mixture into a mold, I don't want that to thicken up too quickly. At this point, you can do more stick blending or leave it as is. Based on the viscosity of my hand mix there, I was happy to leave this as is. It's a bit of a gut check here. If it wasn't as thick as it was, I would probably do a quick stick blend there. You'll get more comfortable with how thick you want your batter to be as you work and become more experienced as a soap maker. So for this mix, I am pouring the non-colored base into the bottoms of the molds, and then I will just alternate between my indigo powder mix and my pink clay mix and back and do a little swirl in between. I try to pour this from as high up as possible so that the colors will sink down through that base that I already have poured through. And then as I'm just dragging along and intermixing, alternating the different colors, I will do a little figure eight style motion with a glass rod that I use, but you can really use anything. You can use a spoon, you can use a fork, like just whatever you want to use for your swirl technique. It doesn't really matter. I always use my glass rods. It's a fine tip, but again, it's pretty minor, or it's a small detail. I've also seen people use, the spatula straight up. Anything you want there goes. Now, along with making soap, you'll become more used to working with different colors. I always use natural clays and powders. You, of course, can use micas, but my line is known for, fully using essential oils and natural colorants. That's just what I'm known for. So it's important to note that some of the colors, especially when you're using natural pigments, like clays or powders, they will change. So right now my blue looks extremely blue, and my pink French clay is very light in color. The blue actually, as the soap bar cures over time, will become a much more faint color of blue, and the pink will actually become more predominant. So it's just be aware of it when you're first starting out and mixing different colors, especially if you're going the all natural route. I would recommend making only one soap loaf at a time, not only for the colorant, but just for your soap recipe itself. You don't want to waste, and you just want to make sure that before you go into making multiple loaves, you're aware of what that finished product is going to look like. But of course, I've made these soap bars many times. So for the sake of convenience here, I'm doing 3 loaves in one go. I love using this soap recipe because I find that it sets up so beautifully. It doesn't become too thick too quickly, but it's also not liquid, right? It's not also not very liquid right off the bat. So it allows me just this perfect consistency to be able to do the swirls, to be able to do nice soap tops, and just to work with the recipe in exactly the right way that I want. And although I didn't capture it in this video, you can see my other soap making videos. I like to do a signature top where I'll do scoop either side and then do some dollops down the middle. And with the soap mixture being this level of thickness or viscosity, it just holds those peaks perfectly at this stage, which for me, I absolutely love. Also not shown in this video, but when I have the soap completely ready, I do hit the tops with a rubbing alcohol spray. This will just help ensure that if there's any soda ash sitting around there, it really helps just make sure that doesn't come through in the final hardened soap bars. And then I do put my soap loaves, I cover them with a cardboard box, and then I'll wrap the cardboard box in some towels and tea towels. That just helps insulate it, and again, really helps with the final look here where you don't get any soda ash at the top. You can, if you do get soda ash, it's not the end of the world. It's not unsafe. You can hit it with a clothing steamer, which does help. But I prefer those tips. Usually that results in me not having to do any steaming. So here I have let my soap cure for just overnight. So I'll let it cure, 18 to 24 hours. And at this point, the soap is hardened enough you can take it out of the mold. You have to be still careful though. Although it's hardened, I'll put that in air quotes. You could still, if I were to drop that soap or to squeeze it really hard, you would still cause indentations to happen. So all of that water and liquid isn't totally evaporated out of the soap yet. So just be careful. It's easy to handle. You don't have to be overly gentle, but especially when you're popping those corners out, you just want to handle with care. You'll get used to it. And as soon as you touch that first soap load, you'll be able to understand exactly what I'm describing here. For that reason, because the soap loaves are still, soft enough, it's why you're able to cut them at this point. If you were to leave them for a couple more days, I think you would possibly damage your wire cutter. And at this point, it's just the right, the right level of firmness and softness to be able to get that wire cutter through. So I manually cut my soap. I think I'm on the cusp here of transitioning back perhaps I do have a soap cutter that will do multi-cuts at one time. I've always learned on the singular cut, it's kind of just my comfort level. I really like watching each cut just to make sure that the quality is there. But at some point I will move over to my multi-cutter, probably more permanently. More just from an efficiency standpoint. It cuts the bars beautifully as well. I think it's just my comfort level at this point. I like that control with the individual cuts. So as I work through, I like to place the soap bars all in this lined fashion because I also do a stamp with my Willow and Pip logo. This is something, of course, that is optional. But I think if you are starting a soap business, it's a really nice touch. It is great for branding because, as you know, once you start using that soap bar and you no longer have that packaged branding on it, the logo, the indentation of the logo here will hopefully help remind after a couple washes where the customer bought your soap bar and hopefully have a return customer as a result. So I've gotten my soap stamps here that you can see me using off of Etsy, and I have a rubber mallet that I got from the local home hardware store. I do wrap a cellophane shrink wrap around the bottom of that stamp. That just ensures that I don't get any gumming up of that soft soap batter, and I get that really crisp stamp that I'm showing you in this image now. I forgot to mention that I top this soap with Pink Himalayan Salt. I think it adds a really beautiful look as well as a really functional use for your skin. Himalayan salt will give a really soft lotion type feel when you use it in your soap. I really hope you enjoyed today's recipe. Again, you could take a look in the notes for the full recipe, weights, ingredients, and instructions. Please like and subscribe for more.